Hello, and welcome back to What We Pod in the Shadows, a What We Do in the Shadows recap and discussion podcast, where we are going back to the very beginning of the show to talk about the first season. I'm Raven.
And I'm Alison.
Today's episode that we're going to be discussing is called City Council.
Okay, this episode aired April 3rd, 2019. Our vamps walk with Guillermo to watch the local LARPing group and watch while floating out a window. Naja deems the group too sad, but Laszlo says he will eat the mean one, even though it will make him mean the whole night. The LARPing group, I keep saying the word mean, the LARPing group is mean to the little female, Jen Elf, or Jenna, that we saw in the previous episode, Beanie Feldstein. And I think the mean one was the Chris Perfetti from Abbott Elementary. Is that who was the mean one?
Yeah, I think
they
so.
deemed mean one.
Yeah.
Naja is drawn to Jenna. So, as they're walking there, it's they don't want to walk places, but then they also don't know the way. So, they turn into a bat, but they don't know where they're going.
Yeah, they are very incompetent in this way.
They find having the Baron in the house challenging and don't recall when he told them to take over the New World. It was apparently only during sex. They seem less than thrilled about the prospect and find his familiar creepy. So, my thing is with this taking over the New World, it's been a thing since the beginning, but there's only 4 of them.
Yes.
We do kind of find out later there's maybe a larger population of vampires kind of here and there. I guess sort of like they are. They're the Staten Island vamps. But where's the help and direction from Baron? He's not, he wants them to do this, but he could tell them how.
Yeah.
Or hey, I will gather some vamps.
Yeah, do any of them have any experience with taking things over except for maybe Nandor?
But I mean, they don't, even if he took charge, Nandor, which Nandor's, he's a little goofy. Even if he took charge, there's still just the 4 of them. So they would have to do something, either hypnotize the humans or start making more vamps.
Yeah.
Something he would need more bodies in order to take over.
The vampires plus Guillermo, minus Colin, argue in the library over how much of America the Baron wants them to take over. Just the US or Canada too. Naja wants to poison human milk with witch's piss. Laszlo, or maybe Nandor, I forget who, wants to take out the king. But Guillermo reminds him that there's no king in the US. Nandor wants Guillermo to make sure the Baron's familiar isn't eavesdropping on them, but it turns out Colin Robinson is. They lie and say they were planning a surprise party for him, but Colin doesn't buy it, so they reveal to him the Baron's orders. Colin says he can take them to the local leaders because he knows exactly where they are. Colin makes them take the bus to the place, saying it's in a weird location. The vampires all turn into bats to avoid taking the bus with him. Guillermo is left to listen to Colin's boring musings about buses. We pan out of the bus, and it is revealed that the vampires, now back in their human forms, are riding on top of the bus. Because they have no sense of direction, so they just fucking didn't want to be in there with Colin. It turns out that Colin took them to a Staten Island Borough Council meeting about zoning ordinances, which he regularly attends to feed on the boringness and frustration of the people attending. He goes up to speak and makes the mic make the most feedback possible, and then begins to give Webster's definition of zoning ordinances. The vampires in the interview room thingy list off their ideas for demands once they are able to talk to the council, which includes a total ban on turtlenecks, an opaque dome built over the city, a vampires-only TV channel, and none-free zones. Colin finally finishes talking.
Oh, nun thing.
No nuns. None.
I think she just likes saying the nun. I mean, I get the, it's because it's the priest and the crucifixes and stuff, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure why specifically the nuns.
Colin finally finishes talking and Nandor gets his turn to speak. Nandor very loudly and close to the mic demands complete and total supplication of the governing body to him, but no one is impressed or pays him any heed because he was not speaking on the meeting's topic. They tell him to come back later when they have an open session in 2 months. Laszlo says that Nandor is blessed with the lack of a university education, but give him an axe and he's your man, though you wouldn't want him as your lawyer.
I thought it was cute earlier. Nandor was like holding Guillermo over his head so he could dust like the chandelier.
Yeah. I didn't make a note about that, but I liked that too. But then he's complaining about Guillermo while he's holding him aloft.
Yeah. And it just occurred to me now, like taking the bus, like because there's so many stops and stuff, it kind of takes you a long time to maybe get to your destination. And I can see why Colin enjoys the bus because it is like boring. Like people are probably falling asleep on there. And then after Colin does, I wish they would have shown like how long he was talking. It was like everyone was barely awake. And then I was wondering, why don't they just hypnotize everyone there?
Yeah.
Or the council anyway. Which, I mean, I know later we're going to get to Nandor does. And maybe that's why they don't, because of what happens to this man. I don't think they have the hypnotizing thing down very well.
Mm-mm.
Did you say that Colin said that it was these council meetings are full of banality and despair?
I think I put boringness and frustration.
Okay. So the president of the council is Barbara Lazaro, but one of the members, Doug Peterson, he wants to take her job, probably like eventually when she retires.
Right.
But he's kind of like gunning for it. So they want to use Doug Peterson as a pawn, but Laszlo wants to visit the president, Barbara Lazaro, at night. So I thought he was like trying to intimidate her, but it was almost like he wanted to like offer her services, kind of. Like almost like a bribe, but he wanted to do it as like, well, this is something I can do for you.
Yeah.
Nadja catches up with Jenna. She can see herself in Jenna and knows what it's like to be disrespected. So like, women through time were not
treated very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Laszlo catches up with Barbara, who is with her baby granddaughter. She brings up a raccoon problem as he kind of flirts with her. He was just saying something like how attractive she was, and I don't know if he was, like
I don't know if he actually did or not, but I'm remembering in the movie like that the vampires were all like attracted to old people. So I don't know if like this is like a reference going back to that or not.
He might have found her. I don't think he was just like flirting for no reason, but because sometimes they're like attracted to odd people, like the Baron. Well, the Baron later, baby, but the Baron when he first comes out of his slumber or whatever, like, So, like, he hypnotizes her and the baby. This keeps jumping around, so it might be a little confusing. So Nandor goes after Doug Peterson and hypnotizes him. We're back with Nadja. Nadja sits with Jenna in the park, and Jenna thinks Nadja is after her for a relationship, but Nadja is wanting to turn her into a vamp.
So then, because Barbara Lazaro wanted to get rid of the raccoons in her trash can, Laszlo tries to communicate with them. Nandor calls to Doug Peterson through the ether, but at first merely attracts Guillermo with his yelling. Yeah. Jenna drinks Nadja's blood from a vial, thinking that it's an alcoholic beverage. Laszlo leaves a giant pile of dead raccoons on Lazaro's porch, which she interprets as a threat at the next council meeting, which I probably would have too. And then also, he hypnotized her to forget that, so she might not even remember. So she probably didn't remember, like, telling him about the raccoon problem. Nandor decides to unleash Doug Peterson on the council, and he starts ranting and saying conspiracy theory type shit about having new masters and hanging people's entrails from, like, I forget what he said he was going to hang it from, but
I mean, he was threatening Barbara, I'm pretty sure.
Yes. He's dragged away from his post, and the vampires say that he's quite obviously mad or someone made him turn. They ask Nadja where she was in all this, and Nadja reveals she was out making a new vampire, but everyone ignores her or doesn't hear her except for Guillermo. The vampires leave because their plans failed, except for Colin, who stays to feast on the negative emotions. Then we cut to Jenna in her like college dorm. She says she's been fighting off an intense flu. Her roommate thinks it's mono, but Jenna says she doesn't think what she's been fighting is mono, and then she projectile vomits.
Yeah, it looks pretty intense.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why Naja would really wants to make another vamp. I think maybe she just wants to see what goes on in that LARPing group with Jenna, because Jenna's probably like, I hate you guys.
Yeah. It looked like she was like the one girl there too. That always sucks when you're the only non-man in a group.
Yeah, probably don't listen to her and stuff.
Yeah. Just wants to have fun and do nerd shit, and then they're just a bunch of assholes because they're like, ew, you're a girl. Even though they're like in their 20s and they should be past that.
I was thinking like the world domination thing or the taking over the new world thing would have been easier to do before now just because of the population. Like what they should have made more of an effort back in I think 1861.
Yeah. Hell, even like if they'd gone back just like in the 1910s, even like and tried to take over, it would have been a lot easier.
Again, I'm not sure. Like, because wherever the Baron, he came over in a ship. They haven't conquered a place, have they? I don't understand why they expected them to come to America and take over.
I don't know.
Like some sort of like a smaller area, like some sort of island nation, probably would make more sense than like because like North America is freaking huge.
It's so big. Like if they just wanted them to take over like Japan or something, they might have been able to do that since it's like a much smaller country.
Like Greenland or New Zealand or something. Like
Yeah, or like just say like Alaska or something. Just start off with a state.
yeah. Well, I mean, Staten Island itself probably wouldn't be that bad, but like again, it's there's just four of them, and their hypnotizing skills are spotty at best.
Yes, they're terrible at hypnosis.
I think they're okay at erasing people's memories, but to actually get someone to do what they want correctly is where they have the trouble.
Right.
It's kind of like the genie thing when you like make a wish and then the genie misinterprets and does something you didn't intend. That seems to be what happens when they try to hypnotize someone and tell them what to do. Like, well, I didn't want them to do that. I really cannot remember what comes next. Like, we are watching, this is like our second time watching this show, but it's probably been since, I don't know if we started when they first came on the air, but it's been a hot minute, and so I'm not totally sure what they do next. I know along the way, I'm pretty sure they kind of just forget about this whole world domination thing.
Yeah. I know the next episode is called Werewolf Feud, and of course they're gonna bring in the werewolves, which I think that was pretty fun and silly, like the way they interpreted werewolves for the show.
And I guess I didn't so at the beginning that maybe their mood is affected by who they drink, or maybe they take on the personality for a little bit of the blood of the person that they drink from.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if Naja was a certain way after drinking from Jenna.
Yeah, this is probably a deep cut, but this was like my first ever manga. It was called Chibi Vampire, and the girl was like a reverse vampire, but the rest of her family were regular vampires, and so they each kind of had like a type of person that whose blood they liked to drink, like personality wise, usually. So it could be like that.
Well, I just think they said that he drank from the mean one, that he would be mean for the rest of the night. But
yeah.
I could see I think I mean, this is not the same thing, but kind of along the lines of what you were saying, like with True Blood, I was thinking they did have like, oh, it's type O, or.
Yeah.
So I could sort of see that, like maybe liking how different ones taste.
Yeah.
I suppose. So I could sort of see, I guess, taking that into account that although it might be better for humanity if they were taking out bad guys, it probably doesn't taste good to them or like bad for their mood if they're like taking out horrible people. And that's why they kind of want like young people or virgins
Yeah.
because they're not evil or whatever.
And one piece of trivia I have for this episode when I was looking at the Wikipedia. So at one point, when they're discussing how much of North America they want to take over, Lazo says, "What the fuck would anyone want with Canada?" Which is funny because the show is filmed in Toronto, which of course is in Ontario.
I sort of wrote that down. I didn't write the context it was in, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Which, I mean, a lot of, like, American shows are, like, filmed in Canada.
Yes, like Smallville, for example.
Yeah, like, a lot of shows on the CW were definitely filmed in Canada. Sometimes even, like, some movies are, too. But I digress. I just thought that was a funny little, I guess, a funny little jab.
I'm assuming it must be
Location.
cheaper or something.
Yeah, it must be. It also seems like if like something does get filmed in the US, they for some reason only seem to film in Georgia or New York.
Yeah.
So I don't know if those are also potentially cheaper or there's just something there that they like better than other parts of the states. I don't know. I don't know how it works.
I mean, it could just have to do with like the rules or the laws in each state and how easy they make it or how expensive it makes for film crews.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that wraps up our discussion for this episode. Next episode is called Werewolf Feud. So that's what we'll be talking about next. Thank you all so much for giving the show a listen. Last time I checked, we had finally gone over the 100 downloads mark. So I'm pretty happy with that. If you haven't already and you've listened to this show, it would be super cool if you could subscribe and leave us a review. We'd love to get some feedback about about the podcast or just like your thoughts about what we do in the shadows in general. If you're watching this on YouTube instead of, say, Spotify or Apple Music, it would be cool if you would like, subscribe, and leave a comment instead of a review. And then we also have our first podcast, which is Mojo Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, which is a Powerpuff Girls JoJo recap and discussion podcast. And sometimes we talk about vampires on there too. And we have like almost 3 times as many episodes of that as this. So there's plenty for you to binge listen if you think that would be the pod for you. So remember, until next time, you're dead and out of this world. Goodbye.
Goodbye.